The Galactic Academy's orientation day was going about as well as could be expected, which is to say it was a bureaucratic nightmare wrapped in a diplomatic incident waiting to happen. Commander Zelthris of the Velkari Dominion stood at the front of the assembly hall, his four eyes scanning the crowd of new cadets with the kind of weary resignation that came from 3 decades of dealing with young idiots from 100 different species. And remember, according to YouTube analytics, 99.3% of viewers are not subscribed. That's a huge number. By subscribing the channel that is completely free, you'll help support the channel and never miss fresh content. Zelthris droned, his translator making his clicking mandibles sound almost bored. The human exchange students are to be treated with the utmost caution. While they have assured us they are, quote, totally harmless and super friendly, unquote, we must remember that humans hail from a Class 12 death world. Their planet is so horrifically dangerous that the Risk Assessment Committee needed therapy after reviewing the wildlife documentation. In the back row, tucked between a nervous Plixian who kept changing colors and a Metherian whose environmental suit was fogging up with anxiety, sat Corporal Jennifer Jenny Martinez. She was doing her absolute best not to laugh. Class 12 Death World. They had no idea. Jenny was one of 5 humans selected for the Galactic Academy's new Cultural Exchange and Definitely Not Spying program. She'd signed up mostly because the recruitment officer had promised unlimited coffee and the chance to mess with aliens. So far, she'd gotten exactly 1 cup of what the station called coffee, which had tasted like battery acid mixed with regret, and approximately 17 chances to mess with aliens, which she'd taken every single one of. The humans have also brought their pets, Zelthris continued, and Jenny could hear the shudder in his voice. Against all advice and common sense, they have been permitted to bring Earth animals as part of their cultural integration package. These creatures include something called a dog, which is apparently a domesticated apex predator, and a cat, which is somehow worse. All cadets are advised to maintain a minimum distance of 5 meters from any Earth fauna. Jenny's grin widened. Oh, this was going to be good. Next to her, the Plixian, whose name was Trilix, had gone a shade of purple that Jenny's unofficial guide to alien emotions suggested meant abject terror mixed with curiosity. Is it true? Trilix whispered, his 3 mouths barely moving, that dogs can bite through bone? Oh, totally, Jenny said, nodding sagely. My childhood dog once ate an entire couch, frame and all. We didn't even notice until we tried to sit down and just fell through to the floor. Trilix's colors shifted to something between purple and a sort of grayish green that probably meant he was going to pass out. The Metherian, whose name Jenny couldn't pronounce, but who told her to just call him Sparkles because it was easier, made a sound like a deflating balloon. But hey, Jenny added, because she wasn't a complete monster, most dogs are sweethearts. It's the cats you gotta watch out for. Those fuzzy little sociopaths will knock your stuff off tables just to watch it fall. Why would you domesticate such creatures? Sparkles wheezed through his translator. Because they're cute and we like them, Jenny said, as if this explained everything. Which, to be fair, to a human it kind of did. The orientation continued for another hour, covering such thrilling topics as emergency decontamination procedures, what to do if you accidentally insult a Kronar's mating display, and why you shouldn't touch the human's food. Seriously, their spices can melt hull plating. Finally, blessedly, they were dismissed to their assigned quarters. Jenny had been paired with 3 other cadets in a quad-style dormitory that the Academy optimistically called spacious, and which Jenny would have called a closet with delusions of grandeur. Her roommates were Trilix the Plixian, Sparkles the Metherian, and a towering Kravik named Zorgoth, who had approximately 6 arms and communicated primarily through interpretive violence, or so the rumors said. When Jenny walked in, Zorgoth was arranging her belongings with 4 of her 6 arms, while the other 2 held what appeared to be weapons. She turned her massive horned head toward Jenny and made a sound like grinding rocks. Zorgoth says hello and asks if you require assistance with your luggage. Trilix translated nervously. He'd apparently downloaded a Kravik translation app. Nah, I'm good, Jenny said, dropping her duffel bag on the unclaimed bunk. But thanks, Zorgoth. I appreciate it. Zorgoth made another grinding sound, and Trilix's color went bright yellow. She says she likes you because you are not afraid, and that if anyone threatens you, she will remove their organs in alphabetical order. Cool, cool, Jenny said, nodding. Tell her I'll bring her coffee sometime. You haven't lived until you've had Cuban coffee. The translation made Zorgoth's eyes widen, and she made an excited grinding noise while Trilix helpfully added, She says she accepts this warrior's bond and will defend you unto death. Great, Jenny said. I'm going to go check on Captain Fluffles. Be back in a bit. The silence that followed was deafening. Captain Fluffles? Sparkles finally squeaked. My cat, Jenny explained. He's in the quarantine section until they clear him for general population, which is ridiculous because he's had all his shots, but whatever. Bureaucracy, am I right? She left before anyone could respond, mostly because she was pretty sure Trilix was about to faint. The quarantine section was on the lower deck, a temperature-controlled nightmare of scanning equipment and paranoid xenobiologists who kept asking her if she was sure her cat wasn't venomous or capable of spontaneous combustion. Jenny had assured them that Captain Fluffles was, in fact, just a cat. But they'd insisted on running every test known to science, and possibly inventing a few new ones. When she arrived, she found Dr. Kilthrin, a stick-thin Valarian with too many fingers, holding a tablet and staring into Captain Fluffles' enclosure with the expression of someone whose entire worldview had just been shattered. He purrs, Dr. Kilthrin said without preamble. The small Earth predator produces a vibration that our medical scanners initially identified as a threat display. But further analysis suggests it indicates contentment. Yeah, that's purring, Jenny said, peering into the enclosure where Captain Fluffles, a massive orange tabby who weighed approximately 15 pounds of pure chaos, was lounging on his heated bed like a furry little emperor. It means he's happy. But the sonic frequency could theoretically be weaponized, Dr. Kilthrin insisted, his translator making him sound frantic. We've run simulations. If amplified, this purr could shatter crystalline structures. I mean, yeah, if you strapped him to an amplifier and cranked it up to 11, probably, Jenny admitted. But generally speaking, he just purrs when you pet him. It's cute. Cute, Dr. Kilthrin repeated, as if Jenny had just said something in an entirely different language. The predator is cute. The cutest, Jenny confirmed. She pressed her hand against the enclosure. Hey, Captain. Miss me? Captain Fluffles, who had been ignoring the conversation with the disdain only a cat could muster, opened one green eye, assessed Jenny, and then stretched with the kind of lazy arrogance that suggested he owned the place and was merely allowing them to exist in his presence. Then he yawned, displaying an impressive array of sharp little teeth, and Jenny heard Dr. Kilthrin make a sound like a broken printer. Relax, Doc, Jenny said. He's literally just yawning. Those fangs could pierce standard armor, Dr. Kilthrin whispered, making notes on his tablet with shaking fingers. "Only if he really wanted to," Jenny said cheerfully. "Mostly he uses them to bite my toes when he wants breakfast." The look Dr. Kilthrin gave her suggested he was reconsidering everything he knew about human pain tolerance. Jenny spent another 20 minutes reassuring the medical staff that Captain Fluffles was not, in fact, a bioweapon, and then headed to the recreational area where she'd agreed to meet the other human cadets. The rec area was a large open space filled with various types of equipment designed for different species' exercise needs. There were climbing structures for the Arborians, swimming tanks for the Aquarians, and what appeared to be a small gladiatorial arena for the Kraviks. She found her fellow humans clustered around a table, looking entirely too pleased with themselves. "Martinez," Lieutenant Commander David Chen greeted her with a grin. "How's Captain Fluffles settling in?" "They think he's a weapon," Jenny reported. "Dr. Kilthrin's having an existential crisis about purring." "Nice," said Lieutenant Maria Santos, who was absently juggling 3 protein bars with the kind of casual dexterity that made the nearby alien cadets stare. "I brought Bruno for his first walk around the station. You should have seen the cadets. They scattered like I was walking a tank." Bruno, for the record, was Maria's dog, a 3-year-old golden retriever who was objectively the sweetest creature in the known universe. He was also approximately 70 pounds of pure enthusiasm and had a tail that wagged with enough force to potentially cause injury. "Did he do the thing?" Jenny asked hopefully. "He did the thing," Maria confirmed, grinning. "Walked right up to a group of Valorian cadets, sat down, and offered his paw. They screamed. It was beautiful." Lieutenant Jack Thompson, the unofficial leader of their Chaos Brigade, leaned back in his chair. "So, orientation was about what we expected?" "They spent 45 minutes telling everyone we're from a death world and to avoid us," Jenny said. "Standard stuff, although Zorgoth adopted me as her warrior sister, so that's new." "Kraviks respect strength," Captain Nina Rodriguez said, looking up from her tablet where she was absolutely not reading manga and was definitely reviewing important military documentation. "You probably impressed her by not flinching." "I mean, why would I flinch?" Jenny said reasonably. "She's tall and has horns, sure, but she's also obviously rearranging her stuff by color. She's neat. I like neat." The 5th member of their group, Ensign Robert Bobby Nakamura, who had been quietly sipping something that looked like it might be actual coffee, finally spoke up. "Did anyone else notice the warnings about the training decks? Apparently, there's a section specifically designed to simulate Death World conditions." "Oh, we're definitely checking that out," Jack said immediately. "Obviously," the rest of them chorused. The next few days passed in a blur of classes, training sessions, and increasingly worried reports from the academy staff about the humans' concerning lack of survival instinct. Jenny had been reprimanded twice for climbing the outside of a building because it was faster than taking the stairs. Maria had given a lecture on Earth mammals that had resulted in 3 students fainting. And Jack had accidentally started a minor diplomatic incident by describing human warfare tactics in what he thought was a casual conversation, but which the Galactic Military Council had classified as weaponizable horror. But the real fun began on Training Day 7. Training Day 7 was when cadets were introduced to the Academy's exotic fauna collection, a sort of petting zoo meets educational facility where students could observe and interact with various species from around the galaxy under controlled conditions. The staff assured everyone that all animals were perfectly safe, properly contained, and absolutely would not eat anyone probably. Jenny arrived at the Fauna Center with Trilix, Sparkles, and Zorgoth in tow. Her roommates had apparently decided that traveling in Jenny's orbit was safer than facing the galaxy alone, which Jenny found both hilarious and kind of sweet. The center was enormous, with habitats designed to replicate hundreds of different environments. There were aerial zones for flying creatures, aquatic tanks for water dwellers, and terrestrial enclosures for everything in between. Their guide was a cheerful Plixian named Morphix, who kept reassuring everyone that the protective barriers were completely impenetrable and had never failed before. Well, except for that one time. But we don't talk about that. Today, Morphix announced, his three mouths somehow harmonizing, we have a very special exhibit. We are honored to host a juvenile Corthax, on loan from the Predator Preservation Coalition. The Corthax is one of the galaxy's apex predators, capable of achieving speeds of over 100 kilometers per hour and possessing bite force that can crush durasteel. The assembled cadets made various sounds of awe and terror. Jenny made a mental note to look up Corthax on Space Wikipedia later. However, Morphix continued, this is a juvenile, only 6 months old, so while still dangerous, it is significantly less lethal than an adult. We will observe from behind the barrier, and under no circumstances should anyone attempt to interact with the creature. They were led to a large enclosure that resembled a rocky canyon. At first, Jenny didn't see anything. Then there was movement, a flash of dark scales and golden eyes, and suddenly the Corthax cub bounded into view. It was about the size of a large dog, maybe 60 or 70 pounds, with obsidian scales that shimmered in the light, 4 powerful legs ending in curved claws, and a head that was all teeth and attitude. It moved with a kind of predatory grace that spoke of millions of years of evolution perfecting the art of murder. It was also, Jenny thought, kind of cute in a could absolutely rip my face off sort of way. The Corthax cub prowled around its enclosure, golden eyes scanning the crowd of cadets. Most of them had taken several steps back. Trilix had gone a color that Jenny's guide didn't even have listed. Sparkles was hiding behind Zorgoth, who had all 6 arms crossed and was making a low grinding sound that her translator helpfully informed everyone meant impressed by worthy opponent. Then the Corthax cub's eyes landed on Jenny. There was a moment where they just stared at each other, predator and prey, or predator and different predator, depending on how you looked at it. The cub tilted its head, studying her with what looked like curiosity. Then it opened its mouth and made a sound. It wasn't a roar, exactly. It was more of a rumble? A sort of low, vibrating growl that resonated in Jenny's chest and made her teeth buzz. It was clearly a sound meant to intimidate, to establish dominance, to say, I am dangerous and you should be afraid. The other cadets froze. Someone whimpered. Morphix was frantically checking the barrier integrity. And Jenny. Jenny grinned. Oh, is that how we're playing? She said. And then, because Jenny Martinez had exactly 0 self-preservation instinct and thought it would be funny, she growled back. It wasn't a human growl, if such a thing even existed. It was something Jenny had learned from her dad, who had learned it from his dad. A sort of deep chest rumble that came from somewhere primal and probably inadvisable. It was the sound you made when playing rough with dogs, or when trying to out-stubborn a cat, or when you just wanted to see what would happen. The Corthax cub's ears, or what passed for ears on a murder lizard, perked up. Its tail, which had been lashing aggressively, went still. Then, and this was the part that would live in galactic legend, it made a different sound. A higher-pitched version of the growl, almost playful, and pounced toward the barrier with all the grace of a kitten attacking a toy. Jenny laughed, a genuine delighted sound, and made the growly noise again. The Corthax cub responded, bouncing on its front legs, tail wagging, in what was unmistakably a playbow. "Oh my God," Jenny said, her grin threatening to split her face. "You're just a big puppy, aren't you?" Behind her, someone fainted. Jenny was pretty sure it was Sparkles. Morphix was making a sound like a car alarm. The human is communicating with the apex predator. The human is playing with the apex predator. This is not in the manual. This is not in the manual. "Is the human broken?" Trilix whispered, his colors cycling through what had to be every emotion in existence. "No," Zorgoth said, and her translator made her sound almost proud. "The human is establishing dominance through play. This is a warrior's tactic. I approve." Jenny, completely oblivious to the chaos behind her, was having the time of her life. The Corthax cub was racing back and forth along the barrier, occasionally throwing itself at the transparent wall with gentle thuds, making excited rumbling noises. Every time Jenny growled, it would respond, and the pitch was getting progressively sillier. "Who's a good apex predator?" Jenny cooed, which was probably not the appropriate way to address a creature that could theoretically eat her. "Who's a good murder puppy? You are. Yes, you are." The Corthax cub rolled onto its back, all four legs in the air, exposing its vulnerable underbelly in a display that made the xenobiology students in the crowd start frantically taking notes. Subject is displaying submission behavior to the human. One of them was muttering into a recorder. This contradicts all known data about Corthax temperament, requesting immediate academic review. "Does she not comprehend the danger?" Another cadet asked, sounding genuinely distressed. "Oh, she comprehends it." Maria's voice cut through the chaos. Jenny hadn't noticed her fellow humans arrive, but they were all standing there, now looking various shades of amused. "She just doesn't care. That's kind of our whole thing." Jack was recording everything on his tablet, absolutely grinning. "This is going in the report as Exhibit A for why humans should be allowed to interact with all fauna." "The council is going to lose their minds," Nina said, sounding delighted. Bobby was studiously reading the information plaque about Corthax. "Says here they're typically aggressive and territorial toward anything they perceive as a threat. They only show playful behavior toward pack members." "So Jenny just got adopted by a murder lizard," Maria concluded. "Honestly, that tracks." Inside the enclosure, the Corthax cub had rolled back onto its feet and was now doing something that could only be described as zoomies, racing in circles at high speed while occasionally launching itself at the barrier near Jenny, making excited sounds. Jenny was laughing so hard she had tears in her eyes. "Oh man, someone needs to get me into that enclosure. We're going to be best friends." "Absolutely not," Morphix shrieked, all three of his mouths in perfect harmony of horror. "The liability waiver alone would be 300 pages. The insurance premiums, the potential for catastrophic injury, the paperwork." "But look at him," Jenny argued, gesturing at the Corthax cub, who was now sitting at the barrier, tail wagging, tongue lolling out in what was probably the galaxy's most dangerous imitation of a happy dog. "He's baby. It is a 6-month-old apex predator with a bite force measured in metric tons," Morphix said, sounding like he was on the verge of a breakdown. "Yeah, but he's a cute 6-month-old apex predator with a bite force measured in metric tons," Jenny countered, as if this was somehow a reasonable argument. Zorgoth made an approving grinding sound. "The human speaks wisdom. Worthy opponents can also be companionable. This is the warrior's way." "It is not the warrior's way," Morphix insisted. "It is the way of madness." The Corthax cub, apparently deciding that the barrier was the only thing preventing optimal friendship, started scratching at the wall with one paw, making a sound that was almost like a whine. Its golden eyes were fixed on Jenny with what could only be described as adoration. "I'm going to die," Trilix said, his color now a resigned shade of gray. "I'm roommates with a human who has befriended an apex predator. This is how I die." "If it helps," Jack offered helpfully. "Humans have a long history of befriending things that could kill us. We domesticated wolves. We keep sharks in aquariums. There's a guy back on Earth who's best friends with a crocodile." "Why?" Sparkles wheezed from his position on the floor, where he'd apparently decided to stay after fainting. "Because they're cool," Jack said, shrugging. "And honestly, same reason we keep cats. Because we can, and because it's funny. Your species values humor over survival," Trilix said flatly. "Now you're getting it," Maria said, patting him on what might have been his shoulder. The commotion had attracted more cadets, and soon there was a crowd gathered around the Corax enclosure, all watching in various states of shock as Jenny continued to communicate with the apex predator through a series of growls, coos, and what appeared to be interpretive hand gestures. The Corax cub was eating it up, responding to each sound with its own vocalizations, occasionally doing little jumps or spins, clearly showing off. "Okay," Nina said, having apparently appointed herself the voice of reason despite also being very entertained. "Jenny, you're going to give the academy staff collective heart attacks. Maybe we should move along." "But we're bonding," Jenny protested, even as the Corax cub pressed its snout against the barrier, leaving what was probably going to be a very difficult-to-clean smudge. "You can bond with the murder lizard later," Nina said firmly. "After we've filed the proper paperwork and possibly gotten you declared legally insane so we can use that as a defense." "Fine," Jenny sighed dramatically. She turned to the Corax cub. "I'll come back, okay, buddy? We'll hang out. I'll bring you... Do you eat meat? You probably eat meat. I'll figure something out." The Corax cub made a sad little rumble, and Jenny could swear its eyes got bigger and more pleading. "Oh no," Maria muttered. "It's doing the puppy dog eyes thing. Even the apex predator knows how to manipulate humans with cuteness. We're doomed as a species." "We were always doomed," Bobby said philosophically. "We just choose to pet the things that could kill us on our way down." As they finally managed to drag Jenny away from the enclosure, leaving behind a very confused Morphix and a Corax cub that was making sounds that its handlers had literally never heard before, the other cadets started whispering among themselves. The human made the Corax playful. The human challenged an apex predator, and the predator submitted. The humans are more dangerous than we thought. Or more friendly. How are those different? Back in their quarters that evening, Jenny's roommates were still processing what they'd witnessed. Zorgoth was sharpening her weapons with what seemed like newfound respect, occasionally grinding something that Trilix's translator app claimed meant worthy of saga. Sparkles had recovered from his fainting spell, but was staying inside his environmental suit, possibly forever. And Trilix, who had cycled through approximately every color in existence over the course of the day, had finally settled on a sort of resigned orange. "Jenny," he said carefully, using all three mouths so she'd know he was serious. "Do humans understand the concept of danger?" Jenny, who was lying on her bunk reading a very angry email from Commander Zelthris about proper conduct around exotic fauna, and why laughing at an apex predator is not appropriate cadet behavior, looked up. "Sure we do. We just have different risk assessment parameters." "Explain," Trilix said. "Okay, so..." Jenny sat up, clearly warming to her topic. Most species see something dangerous and think, that could kill me, I should avoid it. Humans see something dangerous and think, that could kill me. But what if we became friends? It's not that we don't understand danger. We just think danger is less important than potential friendship. That is insane, Sparkles wheezed. That is humanity, Zorgoth ground out approvingly. But the Corax cub could have hurt you, Trillix insisted, even through the barrier if it had malfunctioned. But it didn't, Jenny said reasonably. And even if it had, the little guy wasn't actually trying to threaten me. He was playing. You could tell by the body language, the way his tail was moving, how he was bouncing instead of stalking, the pitch of his growls. He's a baby who wanted to play, not a predator hunting prey. How did you know that? Trillix asked, genuinely curious now. Same way I know Captain Fluffles' angry meow from his hungry meow, Jenny said. You just pay attention. Animals communicate pretty clearly if you know what to look for. Zorgoth made a thoughtful grinding sound. On my world, we have creatures called thrax. They are large, have many teeth, are very aggressive. We hunt them, or they hunt us. There is no playing. Have you ever tried? Jenny asked. The silence that followed was profound. You want me, Zorgoth said slowly, to try to play with a thrax. I mean, maybe not right away, Jenny amended, but like baby steps or baby bites, whichever comes first. Your species is going to revolutionize xenobiology or get everyone killed, Trillix said, sounding exhausted. I cannot determine which. Why not both? Jenny said cheerfully. A few weeks later, after extensive paperwork, multiple safety briefings, and what Jenny suspected was a significant amount of betting among the academy staff about whether she'd survive, she was finally granted supervised access to the Corax enclosure. The entire human contingent came to watch, because of course they did. So did about half the academy, because apparently human attempts to play with apex predator was the most entertaining thing to happen in the academy's 300-year history. Morphix had made her sign 17 different liability waivers and was currently having what appeared to be a panic attack in the corner. The Corax handlers, a team of 4 heavily armored Kravix, watched with weapons ready and expressions that suggested they thought this was either the bravest or stupidest thing they'd ever seen. The Corax cub, who Jenny had learned was named Shadowfang because of course he was pacing excitedly on the other side of the enclosure entrance, clearly recognizing Jenny even from a distance. Remember, one of the handlers ground out, her translator making her sound stern. No sudden movements, no loud noises, no running. Keep your vital organs protected. Do not make direct eye contact. Do not, yeah, Jenny said, waving her hand. Don't worry, we've got this. That is what I am worried about, the handler muttered. The enclosure door opened. Shadowfang immediately bounded over, moving with that particular combination of grace and chaos that characterized all young predators. He was bigger than Jenny remembered, already showing the muscle definition that would eventually make him one of the galaxy's most efficient killers. He stopped about 2 meters away, suddenly cautious, golden eyes fixed on Jenny. Hey, buddy, Jenny said softly, crouching down to make herself smaller and less threatening. Remember me? The weird human who growled at you? Shadowfang tilted his head, processing. Then he made that same rumbling sound from before, though now it was deeper, more resonant. Jenny grinned and growled back, the sound coming from deep in her chest. The effect was immediate. Shadowfang's tail started wagging so hard his entire back end wiggled. He dropped into a play bow, front legs extended, back end in the air, making excited chittering noises. Then he pounced. There was a collective gasp from the watching crowd. The handlers tensed, weapons raised. Morphix made a sound like a dying computer. But Shadowfang didn't attack. He landed next to Jenny, rolled onto his side, and made an expectant rumbling sound, exposing his scaled belly. "Oh," Jenny said, completely delighted. "You want belly rubs? You want belly rubs." And then, while approximately 300 alien cadets watched in absolute horror, Jenny Martinez, human, gave belly rubs to an apex predator. Shadowfang made a sound that could only be described as a purr crossed with a rumble, his tail thumping against the ground, golden eyes half closed in contentment. "Who's a good boy?" Jenny cooed, scratching at the surprisingly soft scales. "Who's the best apex predator in the whole galaxy? You are. Yes, you are." "I need to sit down," someone in the crowd said. "We're already sitting," someone else replied. "I need to sit down more." For the next 30 minutes, Jenny played with Shadowfang. They played tug-of-war with a reinforced rope toy, which the Corthax won easily, but seemed to enjoy anyway. They played chase, where Shadowfang would race around the enclosure at speeds that should have been terrifying, but mostly just looked like zoomies. They played hide-and-seek, where Shadowfang would crouch behind rocks that were far too small to hide him, then pounce out with obvious delight when Jenny pretended to be surprised. It was, by all accounts, adorable. It was also completely insane. The human is teaching the Corthax to play fetch. One of the xenobiology students was narrating into their recorder, voice filled with academic hysteria. The Corthax appears to understand the concept. This should not be possible. Nothing in the literature suggests Corthax are capable of play behavior with non-pack members, especially non-Corthax. I'm questioning everything I learned in school. "New theory," another student chimed in. "Humans aren't from a death world. Humans are the death world. They make everything else want to play." "That's somehow worse," the first student replied. When Jenny's time was finally up, and the handlers very politely but firmly insisted she had to leave before Shadowfang got too excited and accidentally committed murder, the Corthax cub was clearly sad to see her go. He followed her to the enclosure entrance, making plaintive rumbling sounds. "I'll come back," Jenny promised, scratching behind his ear ridges one last time. "I promise, okay? We're friends now. Friends don't abandon friends." Shadowfang rumbled, softer now, and bumped his massive head against her shoulder in what was unmistakably affection. As Jenny exited the enclosure to actual applause from the assembled crowd, which was weird, Jack threw his arm around her shoulders. "You know you've just made history, right? First human to successfully befriend a Corthax. They're going to write papers about you. Terrible, confused papers." "Good," Jenny said. "Maybe they'll finally update those stupid xenobiology textbooks. They're all wrong about Earth animals, too. I've read them. Apparently, cats are classified as obligate carnivores with oppositional relationship dynamics, which is technically true, but makes them sound way more intimidating than Captain Fluffles deserves." "Captain Fluffles is absolutely intimidating," Maria argued. "He knocked over Dr. Kilthrin's entire research display yesterday, on purpose, while maintaining eye contact." "Okay, that's fair," Jenny admitted. Commander Zelthris was waiting for them outside the Fauna Center, his 4 eyes somehow managing to convey exhausted resignation despite being compound eyes, which shouldn't be able to do that. "Cadet Martinez." "Commander," Jenny said, trying to sound professional and probably failing. "I have just witnessed you befriend a creature that, according to all known scientific literature, should have eaten you." "Yes, sir," This is the third incident this month involving you and dangerous fauna. The first being your cat, the second being the incident where you tried to pet a venomous skrill, which ended in you needing antivenom and the skrill needing therapy. To be fair, the skrill documentation didn't mention they could have anxiety attacks, Jenny said. I felt bad. Zelthrus made a clicking sound that his translator helpfully informed everyone meant resignation to the absurd. Cadet Martinez, I am putting you in charge of the xenobiology outreach program. Jenny blinked. Sir? If you are going to befriend every dangerous creature in the galaxy, you might as well do it officially. Zelthrus continued. Perhaps if we channel this absolutely deranged instinct of yours into something productive, you will stop giving the medical staff collective nervous breakdowns. Does this mean I can visit Shadowfang regularly? Jenny asked hopefully. It means you can visit Shadowfang regularly, under supervision, with appropriate safety protocols. And for the love of all that is holy, please stop making the apex predators love you. It is deeply unsettling to everyone involved. No promises, sir, Jenny said, grinning. Zelthrus looked at the other 4 humans, who were all trying very hard not to laugh. Are they all like this? Pretty much, Jack confirmed. Your species is going to give me a stress condition, Zelthrus muttered. Probably, Nina agreed cheerfully. As they walked back to their quarters, Jenny couldn't help but feel like this whole galactic exchange program was going exactly as planned. Sure, she was accidentally revolutionizing xenobiology and giving the Academy staff collective stress disorders, but she was also making friends. Really weird, occasionally deadly friends, but friends.